The biggest battles we face aren't external at all. They're actually internal. You see, sometimes we run not because we've been defeated. We simply run because fear begins to shape what it is that we actually see. So today on Faith and Focus, we're going to lean in on the battle in your mind, perception versus reality. Have you ever received a text message or a phone call that instantly made your heart drop? Nothing had to actually happen. No one touched you. Your bank account didn't change. Nothing happened in that second. Your health didn't shift, but suddenly you were sweating, trying to figure out what was going on because your mind began to race. And within 60 seconds, you had visualized a disaster so real that your body began to react to it. You see, we often think our situation changes because of what it is that we actually hear. But the truth is, it's what our mind sees that defines our perception and makes what we hear our reality. See, the prophet Elijah teaches us a lot in a few chapters. So let's look at 1 Kings 19:3. I'm going to be looking at the King James Version. And it says, verse 3, and when he saw that, he rose and went for his life. Notice it doesn't say when he heard. It doesn't say when he saw it. He saw the thing spoken. He visualized the threat until it became more real than the God who he was standing right next to. See, it's not always what we hear that changes our situation or what we hear that changes our circumstance. It's what our mind sees that defies or defines our perception and then begins to make it our reality. See, the thing that we have to realize is that context is everything. So let's take a look at the prophet Elijah. The prophet Elijah, he wasn't a coward. This was a man who, by all means, called for a drought, and a drought happened. He was fed by ravens. He performed the first recorded resurrection. He called down fire, and he killed 450 false prophets in one day. He had just come off the greatest victory of his life. And yet, he got a word, one word from not the king, but the king's wife, Jezebel, a woman. And she simply says to him that by this time tomorrow, you're going to be dead. It wasn't what she did. It was what she said. It was what he saw. And he saw the spoken thing. And then he began to visualize it, and it became his reality. So Elijah stopped seeing the fire from the mountaintops, and he started seeing his own funeral because she said he was going to be dead. See, Elijah didn't run because he thought that Jezebel was stronger than God. He simply ran because he changed his focus. See, information that we receive is neutral. It's always neutral until our imagination tells us what it is. It gives it shape. So he heard something and he changed it into his reality, even though that wasn't the case. I mean, how many of you can remember a situation or a time when you heard something and you became anxious simply because you were given certain information? The information could have been true. The information could have been untrue, but immediately your body began to shift. You may have wanted to give up. You may have wanted to quit. And what happened was you found yourself in the middle of the wilderness, not because God sent you there. You simply ended up in a wilderness place because you wandered there while you were running away, running from the thing that you saw, the thing that you perceived was real. And that's what Elijah did. After winning the biggest victory of his life, calling down fire, 450 false prophets died on the mountaintop. He lost the battle in his mind, but won the battle on the mountaintop. Let that sit there. You see, Elijah did what most of us do. He took Jezebel's words and he developed a horror movie in his mind. And then he ran into the wilderness to hide in the dark. So here's the lessons that I get from Elijah's detour in the desert, right? When we lose the battle in our mind, we end up in the wilderness. And it's not because God sends us there to grow, because God will send us into the wilderness. But we end up in the wilderness because we're running away from the thing that we perceived and not the thing that was. So here's 4 things that we can learn from this detour. Number 1, Elijah became the main feature in his mind. When we visualize our worst case scenario, our bodies then begin to react as if it's already happening. Why is that? Because our body does not know the difference between imagination and reality. And if you visualize losing your house, guess what? Your heart rate is going to go up as if the bank is at your door about to take your house. And this is what happened to Elijah. He became the main feature of a tragedy in his own mind. The second thing is physical exhaustion. Physical exhaustion feeds mental distortion. See, when we let our mind wander, we do the work of the enemy. See, Elijah was tired. And when we're tired, hungry, or burnt out, our mental projector stops playing testimonies and it starts playing horror films. It forgets what God has done and it sees what's going to happen based on what we're told. And the third thing is that we have to then check our location. We have to figure and understand that the wilderness is a destination or is it a detour? Have we lost perspective because we run out of emotional fuel? Are we there because God led us there to grow? Or are we there because fear chased us there to hide? Where are we? Where are we on our GPS map? And then we have to look at the perception versus reality. See, the reality was that Jezebel was desperate. She was a queen who had just lost 450 of her prophets and her power. She was bluffing. How was she going to kill him? But the perception that Elijah had was that she was an unstoppable force, even though he had just taken out her whole army. And as a result, he abandoned his post, not because he was defeated, but because he perceived. See, he perceived he was defeated. So faith isn't just about what we believe, it's also about weight. It's how much weight are we giving to something? How much weight are we giving to what ifs? Versus how much weight are we giving to God's word? See, the reality is that our situation isn't defined by what's said. It's defined by what we choose to see. See, the greatest battles that we will ever fight are never going to be external. They're internal. And see, the wilderness only becomes dangerous when we start to visualize it as being something dangerous and we isolate ourselves and we withdraw ourselves and we abandon ourselves from our callings because of a ghost that we've created in our own imagination. The greatest battles that we fight, remember, internal. Therefore, I want you to always pause. And I want you to remember that fear is loud, but wisdom is steady. Don't make permanent decisions based on a temporary fear. Keep your faith and focus, and remember, just because you see it in your mind never means it's God's reality for your life. So when you see God clearly, you live differently. So keep your faith and focus and be blessed.